Hello and welcome to this episode of The Inner Estate with your host, Bridget Stuart. Today, my guest is Jim Godwin from Kansas City. Jim, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
I am intrigued by the topic that we're going to discuss today. Jim, as a public speaker and a trainer, you are working on some fabulous new content. And the way that you presented it to me was how to go from being a survivor to a driver to a difference maker. And I find that remarkably intriguing. Would you like to share more with everyone? What is behind this concept?
Yeah, well, it started with me being all three of these things and them not being linear, right? Because I think a lot of times we think of going from one step to the next and then to the next. And I've been all three of these things in multiple points of my career and then been other ones as well. And so what I think is really important for me and for other agents to realize is that success is not a linear path. And there are going to be things that come up that are going to challenge you. And having a framework like this to know kind of where you are, be in acceptance of where you are so that you can move through it in a way that is efficient and caring and nurturing is really important. So I feel very passionate about talking to agents about this kind of stuff because I don't think it's talked about enough.
I agree. And not just in our chosen industry, because both of us specialize in real estate, but even for really anyone, especially in a sales career. But I was thinking about your topic, and I think it could even apply to people in leadership. So I really want to dig in on this. When you and I were getting to know each other better, I'd like to share with everyone some of your history and some of the big life changes that you decided to bring into your life. So you started off, first and foremost, I want to thank you for your service as a Marine. I had the privilege of being the mother of a Marine myself. So thank you for that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then after your service, then you became a plumber, which, believe me, I also am very grateful for plumbers. I think all of us are, right? They don't get enough recognition. Then you became a loan officer, and then you became a real estate investor. And after becoming an investor, you became a real estate agent. And now
that's right.
You've been an agent for, it's around 21 years. You've built an beautiful team in Overland Park, the executive asset properties. You have a heavy focus on investing and investors. And yet I believe you also within your team have regular residential resale. So this has been quite a journey, and I would love to know how that journey, because you made a lot of big choices, and some of them I think you made in a fairly short time frame, because if I recall correctly, you started in real estate around the age of 26. You became a real estate investor around the age of 24. Please, everyone listening, hear that. Bought his first investment property before he was even a realtor at the age of 24. So anyone out there that's thinking about it, you can do it. Reach out and Jim can help you. So could you tell us a little bit about how your career choices and those really big changes that you made in your life led to having this expertise in survivor to driver to difference maker?
Yeah, that's a big one. I've always been really good at being able to kind of see clearly what's on the horizon. And be able to, I've always, I guess this is, I don't know, from my past or from maybe my time in the military, I always have been attracted to doing things the exact opposite of everyone else. So when everyone's going right, I've always wanted to go left and then prove to everyone that they should be going left.
Yeah, someone else in this Zoom room has been called a contrarian plenty of times, so I can relate to that.
I'm extremely contrarian. So luckily that turns out to be a good trait in real estate.
Yes.
I'd love to start when I was a loan officer, which was a huge switch from being a plumber. Just a real quick story about that. When I got into being a loan officer, I was working until like 3:30, 4 o'clock as a plumber, and then going into an office building in my plumbing clothes with my dirty fingernails and taking a bird bath and changing into a suit and tie, and then cold calling from 4 to 7 p.m. until I could make enough money to quit being a plumber. And then I realized that This was back in 2004, 2005-ish. I realized that 70% of the people that were calling in asking about mortgages didn't have a real estate agent. And I was like,
Right.
that's interesting. That's really interesting. So that was the first turn. The first turn for me was like, I like mortgages. It's not like my forever thing. I knew that I wanted to do something else. And then I realized that there's this huge need for people that are qualifying for financing that don't have real estate agents. And I thought, man, I could probably fill that need and see what real estate's like and just test it
Mhm.
out. So I got my real estate license about 4 months later. And then when those same people started calling in, I said, I know a really good real estate agent, me. I started working with people on both sides of the transaction,
Mhm.
being their buyer's agent and their loan officer at the same time, which turned out to be a really good decision because not only was it financially a good decision to make, but also learned a
Right.
ton. And I didn't have to fully commit necessarily into one or the other thing until I really got a good footing on what I was doing.
Yes.
And after about, you know, 6 months, 7 months of doing that, I realized that my heart and soul was on the real estate side.
Mhm.
There's just so many things about being on the real estate side that called me more than being at a desk and crunching numbers that I was like, I got to just do this one thing because I just enjoyed it so much. And until I got full time in real estate pretty quickly. And I loved it. I got really good at it. You know, I think like most agents out there for the first year, I was working with almost every buyer. I don't even know if I had a listing in the first year.
Mhm.
And I happened to be working with a Realty Executives franchise owner
Right.
who kind of took me under her wing because she saw some potential. And she was like, you know what? I'm retiring next year and I want to gift you my franchise.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
that's not what I was expecting to hear. That's amazing. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, and so like there was a bit of luck there, but I think with everything that we think is luck, you have to put yourself in the position to be lucky. And
Exactly right. I believe in that.
I put myself in the position so that when luck came up, I was able to grasp it.
Yes.
Um and within a year I got my real estate my broker's license and and for $5,000 she sold me her Realty Executives franchise in 2006.
That's incredible.
Yeah, no idea what I was doing. No idea what I was doing. So, I was the proud owner of a brokerage. Now I was a business owner and a broker. I had absolutely zero clue what I was doing, but that's just how I roll. I like to do things I have no idea what I'm doing, going in the complete
Right.
opposite direction. And then rolling along, 2007 was going well, and then 2008 hit. Well, it was about just before 2008, and I could see the writing on the wall again. And I thought to
Right.
myself, even before like the things got really bad, I thought to myself, there's something's happening here and I need to figure it out before it does happen so I can get ahead of it. And that's when I stumbled on being a foreclosure agent for banks.
Yes, yes. Or
And
an REO specialist.
I became an REO specialist. So
Mhm.
so for the last part of 2007, I learned everything there was to know about being a foreclosure specialist for banks. And by 2008, 90% of my business was working with banks selling foreclosure.
Very good. Okay.
And I rode that way for a long time. That turned into from 2008 until around 2014-ish, I was selling between 2 and 300 houses a year on the foreclosure side.
Did you build a large team at that time, or did you use the brokerage model as your team? Like, how
I
did you?
used the brokerage model as my team.
Mhm.
The foreclosure side of real estate is completely unique and different.
Yes.
And so like I had agents on my team that were helping me like work the buyer leads and
Right.
working that side of it, which is we'll go back to this, but this is how I really got my footing in how to be an investor. But I had to build up a big team just to support what I was doing, right? I had 2 or 3 people full time on the road at all times. I had 7 staff members. It was a big production.
I have a question for you that all of our fellow colleagues will love. They'll have an instant flashback. So, how many lock boxes did you own?
My God. Oh my God. A lot. Hundreds.
Hundreds. Yeah. Yeah.
Hundreds. Yeah.
Do you
Um,
still have them all, or did at some point did you finally like I'm letting them go?
no, I got rid of a lot of them. You got to
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
rotating.
No, yeah, and also they kinda modernized in the mid-teens, so okay, good.
Yeah, well,
Just had to
well,
ask that, I just had a flashback there. So, you've got this big team, you've got staff, you've got agents, you've got listings, you've got the relationships with your banks and trustees. So what you're selling, what'd you say, 200 to 300 houses a year? How long did that go on, and what came next?
that went on for a while until around 2014ish, and then it started to slow down. And then, like it's hard to prepare for a shift like that. But I
Yes.
saw that one coming too. And around that 2015 timeframe, when foreclosures started to slow up a bit, I remember thinking, I haven't prospected or went or have been on a listing agreement or a listing appointment or done anything with in regards to lead development in years.
Years. Years.
Years. Haven't done anything. I'm like, and I'm like, I'm sitting there looking at my transition back into traditional real estate going, I've been in the business for almost 10 years at this point, and I have no idea how to prospect. It was a eye-opening moment
I like to
because
call it a harsh reentry.
yeah, yeah. Because, like when you do something that niche,
Yes.
and you have to break away from that, it's really difficult. A good lesson to learn though, because there's many, many things that I would have changed over that course of that time that I would do differently to ease that transition. It's interesting. It's really interesting. Just a side note. It's interesting because I think you would agree that the more niche down you are in real estate, the more successful you're going to be. But the other side of that is that you have to prepare at some time to need to do something else in case things change, which things always
Correct.
change.
Right.
So you have to be prepared to go into a different direction and niche out into something else. And that shift can be challenging.
It can be very challenging. So, with just a side note that relates to what you're discussing, some of my early coaching clients, around 2013, so I've been a coach since 2009. So around that 2013, 2012, 2013, 2014, I had more than half a dozen clients that were exact description of you. Because during the recession, I believe it or not, looking back on it, I'm like, how did I do that? But I stayed in residential resale primarily, some new construction. I did do some luxury short sales, but I got a short sale specialist to help with that. And so people in your shoes came to me because I'm also going to take a wild guess. You probably didn't have past client to the buyers of the foreclosure marketing going out. You didn't have some, regular life, right? And I coached them through that reentry. And that's how I said, when I say I called it harsh reentry, that's from those clients, which I'm excited to say 5 of them are still in real estate and 1 was able to retire and sell their team. So, as you also made it through. So, you made it through and you had to, as you said, take your niche that was pretty extreme and you needed to regroup and develop a new niche while you still had at least 2 other sources, I'm assuming, going, so you had money coming in. So, what was that next niche?
Learning how to be a traditional real estate agent again,
Okay.
or learning it for the first time.
And
Since
how
everything
did you
is,
do it?
I got a coach.
Great. Good.
Yeah, I got a coach, and I went back to the basics. And they were, it's funny because the first meeting I had with them was like I'm like, no, you need to treat me like I'm a brand new agent
Mhm.
because I need you to teach me the fundamentals again so that I can build off of that. And they're like, what do you mean? You're selling 200 houses? I'm like, it doesn't matter. It
Right.
doesn't matter. And this is what I'm talking about. Like when we talk about going from survivor to driver, I was a driver all of those years, right? I was driving business crazy hard. Like it was really good, right? But being a driver isn't the end game. Being a driver gets you stuck because it doesn't allow for any movement into something that's beyond that. Like if I didn't do all of that work myself, then I make no income.
That's right.
So there was nothing set up for me to shift into what I'm calling a difference maker, becoming a difference maker. because I was stuck in that driver mode. And then once that business started to dry up, then I went backwards into Survivor again.
Yes. And that I was going to ask you, did you hire the coach? Did you catch it early enough? It sounds like maybe you didn't, to like prevent the drop down. Or did you hire them when you were in the drop down and you're like, okay, we got to get out of this quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I was still selling a good bit. Like I had a baseline of still selling foreclosures, right? Because even though it slowed up, I still had certain clients that I still have today that
Good.
kept the lights on, as they say, you know?
Okay, good. Okay, good.
So it wasn't like down to zero, but from where I had been in my career, for
It was
me,
dramatic.
that's Survivor.
Yeah.
That's
And at this time, you still own the Realty Executives.
yes.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah.
I need
Well,
some
so
popcorn. Keep going.
there's a lot more to that story, actually. In that time frame, I moved states, right? So I moved from Connecticut, where I grew up, to Kansas
Okay.
City in 2010. And
Wow. Okay.
so for the first 2 years that I was in Kansas City, I was running my Realty Executives office from
In
Kansas City.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
I really did need some popcorn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I've done some unique things in real estate. And the reason why I did that was because I was scared to death that all my bank clients would find out that I moved to Kansas City and not want me to work. They would fire me because I wasn't in
Correct.
Connecticut, right?
That's right.
So I was scared to death, right? And so 2 years into that, I was so burned out because you can imagine, like I was flying back to Kansas City like flying back to Connecticut every month,
Connecticut.
try to work the business. I had people on the ground that were doing really good work, but still it's very stressful to do that. And so about 2 years into it, I was like at my burnout state, and I was involved in a group of other foreclosure agents around the country. We got together, and
Is
that's
that
like,
a 5-star
it
or
was
Star Network?
what, yeah, 5 Star was one of the places that we went to.
Yeah.
We had it like we like me and other REO brokers around the country. There was like 30
Yes.
of us joined,
Yep.
created this group, and we would travel together and pool money together and all that stuff. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
one of my mentors in that group was like, yeah, your thinking right now is one of lack and not abundance. And have you ever considered what would happen if the same clients that you work with now said, we don't have anyone good in Kansas City, and then overnight you doubled your business? And I never even thought about that. Thought never even crossed my mind, right? Because I was so stuck in the fear mode.
Yes.
And that conference, I went to all my clients and I said, I don't live in Connecticut anymore, and I own a second brokerage in Kansas City. And either maybe you could transfer me over to that department, or I don't know what you want to do, but I just got to tell you, overnight, they were like, oh my God, we don't have anyone in Kansas City. We don't have anyone. Every single client. So when I opened my brokerage in 2012 in Kansas City, again, didn't know the market, didn't know anything about how to do real estate in Kansas City, was a broker owner of a second real estate company.
Realty Executives.
No, this was my own.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, this was my own. I didn't get into a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I own another brokerage in a state that I know nothing about, not knowing anything about how real estate performs in this area.
Right.
And within months, I had like 30 listings.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And then it just spiraled from there. That's why I was selling so many, because at that point now I was selling foreclosures in 3 states.
Wow. Connecticut, New York, and Kansas?
No, Connecticut, Missouri, and Kansas.
Missouri. That's right. Missouri and Kansas. Yeah. Okay. That is pretty remarkable. So when did you stop doing business in Connecticut, or do you still do business in Connecticut?
Nope. Stopped that shortly after in around 2014.
Okay. And did you sell that business, or what'd you do?
Yeah, I mean, I took on a partner.
Mm-hmm.
The partnership didn't go well. Like around that 2014 timeframe is really when the wheels started to fall off
Mm-hmm.
in my life and in my business, because my arc was so short to get to the level that I was at. I didn't know how to deal with it
Right.
mentally. I didn't know how to run businesses at an efficient level. I didn't know how to deal with employees and payroll. I didn't know how to deal with, close to $1 million in commission. I don't want, at the risk of sounding elitist, it's hard to deal with that stuff when you come from absolutely nothing and then all of a sudden have this abundance, right?
Yes.
And so, it got to me, and so uh, it affected my marriage. I ended up going through a divorce, in 2014 and 2000, from 2012 until almost 2015. I became an addict, going through a divorce and the stress of this, transition in the job. I became addicted to Oxycontin
Okay.
very quickly, very quickly and
Okay.
easily too. It was one of those things that just like by accident happened. I had a friend that was like, this will solve all your problems. This will solve all your problems. And for a while, it really did. It really did. It was like a magic blanket that went over me, until it doesn't, until it becomes your worst nightmare. And through the progression of that nightmare that became my life was my Realty Executives franchise blowing up, my marriage dissolving, going through bankruptcy, having properties foreclosed, like the whole thing, being sued all over the place.
Okay.
Um, and then, then you want to talk about going back into survival mode.
Well, yeah. I mean, that would
That,
be a very clear example of definitely survivor mode.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, some very, very dark times. 2014, 2015, or it was like from 2012 until late 2014. It was really, really dark times. Somehow I made it through. And,
What was
mhm,
what was the moment of clarity for you? What was the switch that flipped in particular with the addiction? What was that moment where you were like, no more?
yeah, it was actually a couple of them. There's a few of them because,
Mhm.
I don't know, like I don't know if you've talked to many people that have been addicts or are addicts currently, is that they have very thick heads.
Yeah.
Like they have very thick heads. And so it's like really challenging to get addicts to like think and talk to you in a real way because you're just out of your mind. You're just like, it got to the point where I was in withdrawal every 4 hours until I took another pill. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Like my life revolved around making sure that I had enough to get through my next day.
wow.
And so like you're in survivor mode so hard that it's hard to like think through anything or get past the next 4 hours, right? So like you're literally living just to get through the next hour. So it's
Right.
hard to really make a change. The first moment of clarity was the first time that I was like, oh my God. I was sitting in my living room by myself. I had that day out of pills, had to go like spend the previous 4 hours trying to search around to try to find a dealer in pills to get through. And I got back to my house and I got back into my living room and I was like in full withdrawal and I took a pill and everything was fine. And for whatever reason at that moment, I was like, man, I'm an addict.
Yeah.
It took me that long to realize that I had become an addict. And I was 37 years old at the time. And my first thought after the thought of, oh my God, you're an addict. My first thought after that was, how on earth do you become an addict at 37? What?
I was actually thinking a similar thought, not those same words, but yeah, it's
Yeah. Like
so
and then as I was thinking, like, you have like gotten through your adolescence where most people have this issue. Like you got through your 20s and you were totally fine. And then you became this successful business owner and you have this entire life. And then you decided to become an addict. And it was like this really stark understanding of like that particular thing, like give me this like this horror that I'd never felt before. And what I realize now that I didn't realize at the time is that these behaviors have been going on my entire life. I didn't become an addict at 37. I became an addict at 15. I became an addict at 9. Like whenever whenever these, we go through traumas in our life that don't get dealt with, and then they add up over time. And then you start dealing with those traumas by creating behaviors that help alleviate the pain of that trauma. And
Mhm.
those behaviors over time accumulate to something that becomes very detrimental. Like the avoidance patterns and the not having really strong relationships and the binge watching TV and the eating bad food, that is one thing. But then when it progresses to something that you can't get a hold of, then there's a problem. And
Yes.
I let it progress into its worst form before I decided to do anything about it.
That is really a compelling description of how it does happen. And I'm curious too about, so you have that moment on the sofa after the scrambling around to make sure that you were going to have that next batch.
Fix. Yep.
Um, and then it sounds like that was one of a series. So, like, that thought happened, and you even had the additional, more complex thought around how did this happen when I'm 37? So, something in your subconscious or your inner core, whatever you want to call it, was kind of reaching out. I feel like that was something, some little voice inside was like, Jim, hey, look over here. But then, so then it kind of went away again, and you stayed in the habit. So, like, what
Yeah.
I'm I'm curious if you don't mind, could you also share maybe a few more of those moments? And then what was the one where you finally, you know, said enough and did whatever you had to do to get out of it? Because that's the
Yeah.
good news. Anyone listening, he is no longer an addict. Okay, so maybe I said that with the wrong words, but yeah. So,
No, no, no,
not
no. Yeah.
spoiler alert. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I'm
could
okay.
you
I'm
share a
okay.
little more with that? Because I feel like people don't quite talk about this process enough. And if anyone's listening, to me, I agree with you, and I'm no specialist in this area, but how you describe that of I'll call it sabotage ourselves in different ways, and we blanket it in words like self-care and, oh, I'm going to be easy with myself, and we screw up our taxes, or we ruin a relationship, or we let ourselves go physically, or whatever it is. Like you were saying, there's different ways that it can manifest. And if anyone out there is listening to you and I, and maybe they did have a day like your day on the sofa, and they did have a moment of clarity, and then it went away again. That's why I'm really so keen to hear if you would share a little bit more of, so, like, what were those little series, and then what made you make change?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is that I was spending up to $200 a day on my addiction, which is an incredible amount of money. And
I agree.
that alone was so disheartening to me because I've always been a very frugal person. I don't care about things like I don't need a huge house and a fancy car, and like I don't need
Mhm.
all of that stuff. It's just not me. And
Right.
so like this is the most extravagant thing I've ever done for myself, and it just happens to be killing me. And so I had
Right,
that
right.
thought, like this is what you choose to spend all of your money on, the thing that's going to end up killing you. So that was a reoccurring pattern that happened a lot. Like every time that I would have to go get more, it's like another $700 here, another $900 here. It's like it was everything was going to all of my resources were going to that.
Mhm.
That hit hard. The second thing is that I had started a new relationship with who is my now wife. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had started dating as my addiction had hit its peak. And she's from Denver. She lived in Denver. And after about a year and a half or so of us dating, we decided to have her move to Kansas City and we were going to live together. And I had her move to Kansas City without telling her that I was an addict.
I I was going to ask about that. So it sounds like, and again, I apologize to anyone if I'm not using like the right terminology. So you must have been a highly functioning addict
I thought that I
because,
was.
well, I mean, to the point where she didn't know, and I'm guessing until she started living with you.
Yeah, she didn't know until she started living with me, and then
Mm-hmm.
I was disappearing every couple hours, and she was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then very quickly, when you live with somebody, there's no hiding any of that.
No.
Like, I thought that I hid it from all of my employees. Funny
Mm-hmm.
story about that, though. When I finally got clean, I called all of my employees to to tell them what I had been through, and they were like, yeah, yeah, of course you were an addict. Like, I thought that I was telling them something that they didn't
That
know.
they didn't know. So you
Yeah,
had
and they're
prepared
like,
yourself. You were like,
I had
"Okay,
prepared this
how am
whole
I gonna
thing.
tell them?" And, if you were thinking about the words and how to do it, and you were met time after time with like, yeah, Broseph, tell me something I
Yeah,
don't know." So they all
yeah,
knew.
like, every single one of them, I had this whole thing planned out,
Right.
and within, like, 2 seconds, they were like, "Yeah, we know, like, come
Yeah.
on." So
You know
that
what?
was a
How joyful that you and I can share a laugh about that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
this
a
it's great. It's great, and like I said before, like, these times I can talk about them now because they
yes.
are the blessings of my life that
Mhm.
have led me to where I am and the path that I'm on today. So, this is why I have the freedom to freely express all of these things about my past that aren't
Right.
necessarily easy to talk about. Me talking about it, I know helps people
I do
and
too.
helping get through some of the stuff, even if it's just with the vulnerability piece of it. If you've never gone through addiction, it's really just being able to talk about the things that you're scared or afraid to talk about, and
Yes.
feel and seeing what it's like to be on the other side of that fear is super important for me to express.
Yes.
So that's why I can talk about these things, because I know that it helps people get to the other side of whatever they're afraid to talk about.
I firmly believe that as well. And this is in one of the most serious areas. And yet, even as you and I both have mentioned, it can show up in other ways that don't seem as serious. And yet, if somebody wants to create true change in their life, the more they hear what you've gone through and how you progressed through it, I believe it will help them, whether they were facing a serious addiction or another issue of unresolved conflict with themselves in their own life. So yes, so keep sharing, please.
Yeah. So the final, I guess the final straw, I guess you would call it, was there was one time where I couldn't get pills because everyone that I went to was out at the time. And so the only thing that I could get was fentanyl patches.
Okay.
And they were like these little patches that you stuck on your arm. And like I didn't know anything about them. In this at this particular time, Kelly, my wife now, she was in Denver visiting family, so I was home alone, and I felt like I was going into over, like I could feel myself going into OD mode, like I could feel myself like fading away.
Right.
I called Kelly and I was like, I think I may be ODing, and she was like, "What do you want me to do?" And I'm like, "Just stay on the phone, and if I pass out, call 911." And I ended up not passing out, but I felt like I was sick that whole night, and I put her through a very horrible experience
That is horrible.
because she was on the phone with somebody that could potentially be dying that she loves. And I felt so awful about doing that, about putting somebody through that pain, that I was like, this is it. I have to figure this out. I have to get through this. I knew enough about myself, again, being contrarian, again, back to the contrarian theme. I knew enough about myself that if I tried to do traditional methods of rehabilitation, that it would fail because I would outsmart it. And I looked at the recidivism rate of AA and NA. Did you have any guess what it is?
No, but I love guessing games. I'll say 41%.
17% stay clean.
Wow, okay. Wow.
17% work the program and not go back to addiction. And I looked at that number and I thought, I'm not going to put this much work and effort into something for a 17% chance.
Yes.
I just can't do it. Like that's too much of a D. That's too much of a
Yeah,
D.
right.
I'm like, I will figure out every way that I possibly can to outsmart AA and
Yes.
beat it,
You
and
know
beat it.
what? That's being vulnerable as well. You were honest with yourself and you knew, like, Jim, let's reflect on how you would do that. So you knew. And so then you sought out
Like
what ultimately helped you, right?
I wouldn't buy an investment property that I wasn't going to make money on.
Yeah.
Why would I put this much effort into something that's not going to bear fruit in my life. You know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
I was looking at it from a very business perspective, I
Perspective,
guess,
yeah.
which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but I just knew that like I couldn't do it that way. So I started looking at alternative ways to clear up an opiate addiction.
Mhm.
And the things that I found that actually had success that worked well are things that are not legal in the United States.
Okay.
So the most effective method, especially for opiate use, the most effective way to get clean from an opiate addiction is by going to Mexico or Canada or somewhere in Europe and working with this medicine called iboga.
Okay. Mhm.
I actually have the place that I went to. We can link to if you want to the
That'd be
place that I
great.
actually went.
Yeah, I would love to provide that.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic place. It's a whole thing is a very strange scenario. So I just started researching ways to get clean, and iboga kept coming up everywhere I turned
Mhm.
because iboga is a very unique medicine that's only found in one small country in Africa called Gabon, and
Okay.
it's the smallest country in Africa. And in
Mhm.
that small country of Africa, there's this little shrub that grows, and in that shrub, there's a root that you have to extract the root, and then there's um, bark of the root, and then an inner bark of the root. You have to get rid of the outer layer of the bark of the root and extract the inner layer of this bark of the root. And that particular part of the plant is the active component in the iboga that helps you get clean from opioids.
Okay. Hold on a second. Hold on. Don't lose your train of thought. I'm sitting here going like, okay, I'm fascinated by who was the first human who figured out how to shuck oysters and that was food. But you just really blew that out of the water because I mean what an amazing time we live in that someone figured that out. And then that I'm guessing maybe someone else or maybe the same person figured out that this is what would actually clear that opiate addiction. That is wild. Please continue.
Yeah. So just a really quick rabbit hole down that. So this is the indigenous people of this country. This is their
Mhm.
sacrament. This is their medicine for their tribes, right? And so they use it
Yes.
like we use sacraments here.
Yes.
And so it's their medicine for how they heal themselves.
Mhm.
And it only is available to the Western world because psychologists and psychiatrists are on a search for ways to heal mental illness.
Okay.
And in the 70s, this group of psychiatrists did a pilgrimage to all of these different places where they heard of these different medicines that these
Right.
tribes use, and they
Right.
researched it, and they brought that stuff back to the U.S. to try to figure out how it works. And it just so happens that this iboga plant, it has an alkaloid in it that attaches to the opioid receptor in your brain for up to 2 months.
Wow. Okay.
So it takes the synthetic opioid out of your system and replaces it with this plant medicine, and it sticks in your opioid receptor for up to 2 months. So it gets rid of your craving for wanting to go back to the opiate because your brain is tricked into thinking that it has it. And so
That's
um,
amazing.
it's incredible. It's incredible. And so that's why it's so effective. It has like an 89% success rate with opiate use. So I went from 17% to almost 90%.
And how long does it take? I know anyone listening is going to be like, well, like how long would you have to be treated? Like, give us a time frame.
Yeah. So I'll go through the whole thing. So I was so desperate that I was like calling all these places and going like, I need to come. I need to come. And by the time that I found this place that I was going to that we'll link to, I was turned down initially. And the reason why I was turned down, sorry if this is going on such like a rant that has nothing to do with real estate, but if this stuff is pretty important. I
Very
was
important.
I was turned down because when I was going there to get clean, I had gotten off of OxyContin and went on a legal form of treatment, which is called Suboxone.
Okay.
Suboxone is a prescription medication that doctors give you in the U.S. that
Hmm.
replaces the opioid. Right? It's basically an opiate that doesn't have a high effect to it.
Okay.
And so if you then take an opioid, it blocks the high part of it. So,
Okay.
right. So it attaches to your opioid receptor and it doesn't get you high. And then if you take an opioid, it doesn't do anything. So no one takes it. The problem with it is then you have to detox from the Suboxone.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And because Suboxone is just a chemical, instead of the opiate having like a half-life of a couple of days or a week, the half-life of Suboxone is 14 days. So that means it's not out of your system for 30 days, right?
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yep.
So in order for me to go to this treatment center, they said you have to be clean off Suboxone for 30 days. And I'm like, that was the worst of the worst. That was the absolute worst of the worst. So I remember this conversation very vividly. I was like, so what you're telling me is that I have to go back to all of my dealers that I just threw all their phone numbers away and get a 30-day supply in order to be able to come get clean. And you know what he said to me?
Yes.
He said, not only yes, but you would be better off shooting heroin.
Wow.
Yes.
You have a ton of twists and turns. Yes, that I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. He
Okay.
said, you are better shooting heroin than taking any of this stuff.
Okay.
Because it's closer to the natural form of the opiate plant.
Wow. Okay.
It's less synthetic. It's less synthetic.
So what did you do?
I didn't shoot up. I
Okay,
did not
good.
do that. No.
I was getting a little nervous. Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
So I went back to my dealers and I got a 30-day supply, and it was the most awful feeling in the world. And then I went to this place, 30 days later, I'm on a plane flying to Mexico City. They have some driver that picks me up and drives me 2.5 hours deep into the mountains of central Mexico. And I pull up to this place, and I get there and it's this American dude from New York City with a New York Yankees hat on named Barry, greatest guy in the world. But I could have been going, like, I had no idea where I was going. I just knew that I had to do something. And
Yeah.
it could have been going into,
It had to be
anything.
scary. Yeah.
It was very scary. It was very scary.
Yeah.
And so the first day that you're there, they force you into withdrawal, because if you take this medicine while you have opiate in your system, it will kill you. You're there for a day and a half, and there's 4 of us at a time that are going to go through the treatment. We're there for a day and a half until everyone is like throwing up and sweating and diarrhea and like cold chills and fever and everything. And everyone's in like full-fledged withdrawal. And then they give you this medicine. And then for the next 36 hours, it is a very intense experience.
Mm-hmm.
So iboga is one of the strongest hallucinogens on the planet.
Okay.
The effect is very strong. But I remember like 15 minutes after I took my first dose of that, thinking I could feel the withdrawal leaving me, and thinking this is going to be the end of it.
Wow.
Like I could just tell that it was going to be the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
36 hours of really intense experience coming out of that. I was like a completely different person.
That's wild.
Completely different person. There's a lot that happened in that time that
Mm-hmm.
don't need really to get into, but I was there for 7 days.
Okay.
So after the 36 hours, you come out of it, and then, there's some people that you still need to take a little bit of medication here and there. So for the next 3 or 4 days that you're there, they give you like very small doses to try to just kind of like get you back into like the not feeling the withdrawal part of it.
Okay.
And then in 7 days, I left that facility and got on a plane and never took another pill again, and never had the urge to ever take a pill again in my life.
That is truly remarkable and very inspiring. And Kelly stood by you through all of this.
She stood by me through all of it. Yeah. And so that was the final piece. My desire to be the person that she knows that I can be, even when I didn't want that myself.
Mm-hmm.
That desire grew so strong that I had to get clean, even though that I was probably at the time okay with not coming through it.
Out of curiosity, sometimes, as you said, life's not linear, right? So I am going to take a wild guess that you definitely did leave from that treatment and that experience a changed person, and you you slayed the dragon. So that is beautiful. Did your relationship with Kelly, because now you come back and you're literally a changed man from the person that she had fallen in love with and been with now for a couple of years and was living together, was there anything odd that happened there because now you're sober? Like, was there any sort of odd relationship issues, or was it really just pretty smooth after that? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
I mean, yeah. So, our relationship leading up to that, even going through all of it up until like the really bad, like the worst of it at the end was really good. Like we had a strong connection and a really good
Hmm.
relationship, even in spite of all of that stuff. And so like she always had brought out the best in
Your
me, even
best.
through
Yeah.
all of those times. And so she saw who that person was
Yeah.
through the addiction.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. It's
I
truly
mean,
amazing.
she probably saved your life.
I tell her that, she doesn't believe me, she doesn't understand how much of an impact she had on me getting clean. Without a doubt, she saved my life.
Yeah. I don't know her, but I know enough to know her ability to see the real you through everything else and her decision to stand beside you as you went through that. I'm just gonna go out there and proclaim that she was definitely saved your life in that regard. You still
Yeah,
had to go through it. You still had to make the choices. But when you talk about blessings, what a blessing that the two of you met.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I'm incredibly lucky. Incredibly lucky. Yeah, it's, it's, I'm very lucky.
Hey, you know what? I'm also, again, I don't know Kelly. I think she's lucky too. I'm going to say that.
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
it's that sounds truly remarkable. So jump ahead if you don't mind to
sure.
you come back, you found this miracle process. You are a changed man. It does sound like, although you knew that the most of the traditional options that are available to everyone wasn't going to be a good fit for you, but it does sound like you took maybe a few of the things they do in those programs because you said you decided you were going to call all of your staff and you were going to talk to them. Like, so now let's jump back into business for a minute. You're going to emerge as a different businessman as well. So what was that impact on, like, how did you pick up in the business stand and move ahead from there?
Yeah, I had to be okay with a few things. First of all, I had to be okay with completely getting rid of any ego that I had about where I was.
Mhm.
Like, I couldn't move forward thinking that had done anything special at all. I had to move forward with a completely clean slate and be okay with starting completely fresh and from scratch if that's what needed to happen.
Right.
So that was the first thing. What was the second part of the question?
Just like, how did you pick up, and because now your business is so strong. So how did you go from, calling your whole team and being surprised that they already knew? And then, like, how many of them stayed? How many left? Did you kind of pick up right from there and keep moving? Or did you have to clean slate and build from zero? Like, I just am curious, how did you rebuild?
Yeah, so that was the second part of it. Like part of me letting go of my ego about who I was in real estate was knowing that I had a lot of broken pieces to pick up and rebuild. Because I had, "Well, congratulations, you're clean, and now you have to like deal with your life."
Yes. Yeah.
And it was my life part of it that was the biggest struggle at that point. So I ended up cutting back to like just a complete skeleton crew with two of my staff who had been there since the beginning, who, by the way, when I was in Mexico and I called them and I'm like, "You're not going to believe this, but I was an addict and I'm clean." And she was like, "Do you know that you have $4 in your business account and you can't make payroll?" And I'm like, "Man, I thought I was doing something good."
Right.
But that's just like, that's life. That's the reality of the situation that I put myself in. And so I had to come home to that. I had to come home to not having money to make payroll and going through a bankruptcy and going through two foreclosures, and having my business in Connecticut completely dissolve. All of that happened at one time.
Right.
And So I had to go back basically to square one and say, I'm going to completely rebuild and be okay with it. And so I had the remaining clients that I had on the foreclosure side that, I had through that whole time were running with just me and the two staff that I kept on.
Mhm.
And I found a broker that I was good friends with in Kansas City that I was like, hey, can I put my license underneath you and run whatever traditional sales that I have through you, and then just have this kind of foreclosure stuff running on autopilot, and then try to rebuild by being just an agent in your company? And I went, after over 10 years of being a broker owner and the big bad boss, to,
Yeah,
begging a friend of mine to be an agent in his company so that I could rebuild my life. And I was completely okay with it because I needed that structure. I
right.
needed to be able to back off and be able to take one thing at a time and piece everything back together. And, I needed to do that for myself in my life, but I also needed to do it for my sanity. And I couldn't be who I really needed to be at that time for clients,
Right.
and so I realized even then that I would be doing them a disservice if I took on too much at once.
That's great. It's great that you had that realization and you were willing to accept it. As a
Yeah, because
fellow high D, sometimes we don't want to accept it and we just push and push and push, right?
yeah,
So that
well,
that was an
yeah,
important
like,
moment.
the one thing that I did keep intact through this whole thing, the one thing that never got touched ever because it was so important to me, was my reputation in the business. Even through everything that I've been through, I never tarnished my reputation
Right.
because it is the absolute most important thing that we have in this business. And I knew that in order for me to maintain that reputation in this community, that I had to take a step back and rebuild it.
And that's another reason why I say you had to have been, to a degree, highly functioning. I think that with having that value on your reputation, and I'm assuming also key relationships, you knew it was showtime. It was the game was on, and you knew when you had to be in it. And then you probably were so depleted that you had nothing left for other relationships or yourself when it was at the end of the day, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. So then I got back from all of that, went back into survivor mode, put the pieces of my life back together over the next year or so, and started to rebuild my life and my business in a slow, very intentional and meaningful way. But this time doing it with a completely new perspective, with the right meaning in place. Right. And with this newfound sense of like wonder and vulnerability for what possibilities could come by me being completely open to anything. And that, like that right there, I can't emphasize enough how much that has impacted my life. The moment that I decided that vulnerability will drive your business is the moment that I not only did my business start to thrive, but I created a freedom internally that I didn't think was accessible.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Um, that to me is a superpower, especially in this business where I think agents have this like desire to keep everything held close to them,
Right.
right? They have to know everything. They have to have every answer.
Yes.
They have to be everything to everyone.
Yes,
And I would tell you that people see through that.
they do.
People see through it, and it only can get you so far before you crack. And if you are in this business for any length of time and you're doing any sort of volume, it will crack eventually. And so, like, I learned this skill of extreme vulnerability with my clients and with my friends and with my family and all of my relationship. And I dissolved this like fake barrier that we have between work and life,
Right.
and everything was combined into deepening relationships, and that's all that I focused on. How do I make every relationship in my life as deep as I possibly can?
It's remarkable. I mean, and I know that's working for you because you have now you're married to Kelly. When did you all get married?
We just had our 10-year anniversary.
Beautiful. Okay. So that is
September
amazing.
5th was our 10-year anniversary.
Happy belated anniversary.
Thank
And
you.
You
Thank you.
have your executive asset properties. You do have your investment portfolio. You're a speaker and a coach. So I feel like what you just described in terms of discovering that power and freedom in vulnerability, I I believe it allows us to live present in each day and to have a bigger impact on everyone that we meet. So kind of when you said that difference maker, I was thinking that even as part of it.
That's how I
So I
shifted into being a difference maker.
yeah, I
Yeah, that's
want
how
to just tell you I think this is so exciting, and I know you're working on a new presentation or a new speech. I'm not sure we want to talk, and I can't wait until you complete it. And I would love to be a guest at one of your times where you share your insight and your story because it's so meaningful. And I want to thank you for sharing all of this. And actually you were an example of what you're talking about today because you were highly vulnerable with me and anyone listening today. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you, I know that you're executive asset properties in Kansas City, that you're with Keller Williams Preferred Properties. Um, and if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what's your preferred method? I'm going to have all your contact information everywhere, but what's your preferred method if somebody wants to reach out?
Yeah, and I'm all on at social media, Jim
Hmm.
Godwin on social media, anywhere anyone can message me. I'm happy to give out my cell phone number if anyone wants to reach out and talk to me directly.
Okay.
I'm pretty much book, so
That is awesome. So, Jim, I really love to share with anyone who's listening just one little step they could take. So if they related to anything you shared, either in business, because we did talk about a lot of business, or in maybe an internal struggle or an addiction of any kind they might be facing, what's one step that you could leave everyone with that they could take right now that would move the needle slightly?
yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question. A really impactful thing that you can put into practice every day is to take a step into the unknown without any kind of an attachment to the outcome. And it could be something really simple. It could be something really simple as having a conversation with somebody that you've been meaning to have that you just haven't wanted to do for a long time because you're afraid of maybe what that person will say. Unattach yourself from the outcome of that conversation and have the act of making the call be the outcome, then you are teaching yourself how to go be out on a ledge and jump off of that ledge and be okay with not knowing where it's going to take you.
Right.
And after a while, you get really good at being on a ledge and not having like any kind of a care of what happens on the other side of what you're attempting to do. It's just like training with anything else. It's just like anything else that you want to go train for. You start off small and then you start building up over time and you end up getting really
Yes.
good at it. And when you do things like this on a daily basis, it trains your mind to be able to be okay with being uncomfortable. And so do that. Go be okay with being uncomfortable.
I think that's fantastic advice. And it is something that anyone could start even today. You could, get off this podcast and go make yourself uncomfortable. I love that you gave that example. Everyone listening, every single person has someone that popped into their mind when you said, call someone that you want slash need to call and you keep putting it off because you're nervous about it. And that would be a brilliant first step for people to take. I want to thank you again so much for being our guest. Jim, I hope that you will come back and be our guest again. You have so much to share, and please keep me posted on the development of your speech.
I will.
I'm already thinking maybe it'll be a TEDx. Remember me when you're on the big stage. Okay. So thank you so much. And I hope you'll come back as a guest. If you're listening, I hope that you will join us again and listen to the next episode of The Inner Estate. Thank you so much and have a great day.